G'day, welcome to the channel. My name is Jared, this is Growers Academy. On today's episode we're going to talk misting. So, glasshouse misting for humidification. First question you got to ask yourself is, do you need misting? You know, a lot of crops in the greenhouse, they don't actually require misting. It depends how you want to steer the crop and what you want to get from your plants. So, here at the moment I've got capsicum, peppers. They are a lot leafier of a crop and they tend to like a bit more vegetative climate compared to tomatoes on the other end, which you can grow a successful tomato crop without any misting at all. Cucumbers fall somewhere in the middle, but to have the flexibility to grow any crop I want to control the humidity and actually do some trials, I want to go ahead and add misting. I felt like when I first brought the plants into their new environment from the nursery, they really struggled and there was a lot of damage on the leaf edges, you can see from the humidity. Just the transpiration was just too fast for the rate of uptake through the small root system that hadn't established itself in the slab. Now they're rooted in, they look a lot better, but we're still in the middle of winter here in Victoria and it's only going to get worse. There was already a day where it got down to 20 RH in the greenhouse. Not sure if that's 100% accurate, but if that's true, these plants are really going to struggle in summer. The amount of humidity you're going to have in your greenhouse is also going to depend on the size of the crop. So a more mature crop with a lot more leaf area in the greenhouse is going to do a lot more transpiration and create more of its own climate in there, compared to a young crop which is only going to have a few leaves and not going to have a very strong root system and good uptake at that point. So what I've gone through and purchased is some parts to do a semi-automatic misting system. So what I have here first is this misting assembly which I've purchased from Aliexpress. So the reason I went with this is just that I like the fact that it came with everything already in kind of one unit. So I had a pressure gauge, it's got the pump, it's got the power supply, it's plumbed in, and also down the bottom, if you can't see, there's a one-way non-return valve. So this is going to stop the misters from dripping or leaking after you run it, which you don't want your crop to get wet, so that's very handy. And it wasn't really that much more expensive than buying each piece individual. Also with this pump compared to some of the more cheaper ones is it has 4 individual pump motors, so it also has a higher pressure. The more pressure you can get, the more fine the particles for the misting are going to be. That kit also came with this black pipe. I went ahead and actually bought some white pipe instead, and that's just because in between the misting cycles there's going to be water sitting in the line, and on a hot day in the sun it's going to heat up and then you're going to spray your crop with hot water. So the colder that water can be when you spray it onto the crop, the better the cooling effect is going to be. In that kit also came with these nozzles. So the line goes into these fittings and you can swivel it any sort of way that you want to direct it at the crop, for example. And there's 6 of these, which I believe is enough for my small greenhouse. The kit also comes with this valve, and what this valve is, it's actually the suction for the water. So this kit's designed to be used with a tank. It can be plumbed directly into the mains water, but has a filter in here and it's designed to be used via suction from a tank. And then the kit also comes with a lot of these push lock fittings to use with that line to get any of the angles you need. It also comes with a little pipe cutter here, which the pipe goes through here and allows you to cut it. For the watering side of things, I've just gone with this 60-litre garbage bin, which was cost efficient as my reservoir for the water. So that inlet that you saw is going to go inside this tank. To fill it, what I've gone and bought is just a float with a ball cock on the end, and that's connected into a tank adapter, which is going to go into the side of this tank. And the reason why I've decided to go with the tank over directly plumbing it in is that, first of all, there's a bit of redundancy. Just in case the water gets turned off, there's 60 litres here that the misting system can keep using. And the other thing is that if I want to do any sort of chemical treatments where I want to put chemicals through the misting system, I can mix them in this tank beforehand and then add it. Next, heading over to the automation part of things, I've purchased this INKbird humidity controller. Now this model is the Wi-Fi model, which allows you to use an app on your phone to monitor and control things remotely. And it has this twin outlet board which allows you to do humidification and dehumidification, and you plug each of the devices into each of these. It also has a sensor here which measures in relative humidity, and it's got about a 2-meter cable on it, and it just plugs into a standard 240 volt outlet. The problem with this controller is that it will just stay on and keep running the misting until the humidity reaches a set point, which could mean, it just runs continuously for half an hour, which is not ideal because the crop's going to get wet, and then you're going to have risks for botrytis, fusarium, pythium, sclerotinia, etc., so on and so forth. So what I've decided is I've also bought another device program, which is going to go into my Trollmaster Aqua X. So essentially I'm just going to plug the INKbird into this, and then this is connected via the RJ12 cable into my Trollmaster. And then what I can do is I can just set it to come on, every 15 minutes for 30 seconds. So if it comes on and the INKbird controller wants to release the misting, it can, but it'll be limited by how long that can run for. So I can set, to start at 9 AM and finish at 5 PM and go every 10 minutes for 30 seconds to spread the misting out. Then to attach the misting line to the greenhouse, I've just got this stainless steel cable, which I'm going to run from one end to the other like my crop wires, and I'm going to cable tie the misting line to this above the crop. So what I've done is I've added in this extra wire here, which is attached to the frame there with the adjustable link to tighten it, and the same on the other side, just above the curtain. So I was a bit torn where I wanted to put that wire, because normally you put the misting below the curtain, so that way you can shade or have the energy curtain over and mist at the same time. But I was a bit concerned that, if the crop gets taller, the misting's going to be below the head. And also the higher up you can get the misting, there's further distance for the mist to fall down before it lands on the crop. And it's going to give it a better chance to actually turn from liquid into vapor and do the humidifying and cooling that we wanted. And also I like to have it close to the fan, because then the fan's going to blow dry air onto the mist, help it circulate and actually change state as well, which is what we want. We don't want the plants actually to get wet. We want the water to turn into a vapor and cool the air. For the location, I think I'm going to decide to put the tank inside, and that is just because the tank is black, and I don't want the tank sitting outside with water in it in the middle of summer like I do with the blue drum. That's for irrigation. That tank is blue, which is going to be better for the heat. This is smaller as well, and it's not going to take up as much room. The blue drum used to come out a lot further, and I struggled to walk through there. So I'm going to put the black tank there. I've also got my fresh water supply here, which I can tee into with my isolation tap. And I also wanted to put the pump here. So this pump is going to mount like this on the wall and then get plugged in, because also the cable here is not the longest. So what I'm doing is I'm putting the reducing bush in the tank adapter with some thread sealant. Now I'm going ahead and putting some thread tape on the valve and threading that into the adapter and tightening everything up. Next, I'm using a Christmas tree or step drill bit to make a hole in our tank so we can install the tank adapter. Then you want to tighten that up, make sure the float is the right way around. And then following that, I've got a ball valve which we're putting on the other end of that tank adapter so we can isolate the tank independently. And I've also cut down the thread on that to shorten it up. And then finally on that, I got a shark bite fitting. Easy, just cut into that line, added a T-piece into our adapter here. And now we've got a valve here to isolate as well. When we open that, it starts filling. I do have it that you can't open the tap all of the way. That's just also, we don't need that amount of pressure. Like, I don't assume that the misting's going to use much more water than that in one go. So then when that fills up, it's just going to turn off. That is the unit mounted on the wall. For the plumbing, I'm going to start at the misting unit and work back to the pump. So that means I'm going to start with my white line, which I've got here, and add these fittings. So the kit comes with one of these plugs, so that's going to be the end of the line. So with these fittings, they just push on and lock in like that. Then next you put in your cap. So now that's going to be the end of the misting line. So I'm starting at the furthest point from the misting unit and using the cable ties which was supplied to attach them to the stainless steel wire we installed previously. Just spacing these every 30 centimeters because the hose has a bit of a loop in it and I need to keep the nozzles pointing in the downward direction. Because I didn't have enough of the white line, the bottom section here running along the frame, I'm using the black hose that was included in the kit, and I'm just tucking it along the electrical conduit using it as support. So for the fogging inlet, I've just got a hole through the cap and then the line inside, and then on the end of the line we've just got that suction inlet, and I made sure that's sitting right on the bottom of the tank like this. Got a quick mock up now. You know, we got the line coming out of the pump with a 90-degree following up this conduit all the way, and then underneath my crop wire, and then up the top it connects to the white line, which then goes all the way along. So I'm thinking now I want to run the system just with that one nozzle at the end to see how much fog it puts out, because I don't want to go ahead and, you know, cut all the line and add 6 nozzles and for it to be way too much fogging. So now I'm just going to plug this into my outlet to test it. And this pump is really quiet. And you can see we got good pressure at the moment. And the misting is awesome. It's super fine. And as it comes down to the plants, you can see it's barely a mist by the time it reaches the plants, which is awesome. And now I have 3 running. I got one here, one in the middle, and one at the end. I'm thinking that I want to add one more onto this side here, just because it seems like it's not quite enough just to cover this front area. See these leaves, how now they're saturated almost to the point of running off? This is the limit on what you want to mist. You want to avoid reaching this point where the leaves actually become wet. If these leaves stay wet going into the night, that is a recipe for disaster. So you want to make sure that you finish that misting at least a few hours before sunset, and you want to play around with the runtime of the misting to avoid getting to this point. Now for the automation part, I've got my Trollmaster device outlet here, and I've got that daisy chained together into the other outlet which is controlling my pump at the moment, and that one goes back to the unit into the device port in the bottom of that. Now the humidity controller plugs into that, and I've just got set here at the moment, and on humidity 1 there is the pump. So the plug going down to our pump there. So that pump won't turn on until the humidity controller here turns on. And the humidity controller here won't turn on unless the Trollmaster tells it it can. So this is controlled based on time, and this is controlled based on the setting. So for example, if I test it manually and I hold down the button, we then get power here, and you can see it's 45% RH, and our misting starts to run. So on the INKbird app, we just go to the device, and you can see its last reading was 45.3%. And in the settings here, we've got a hysteresis of 7%. Down the bottom here we choose a set value, and I've got it set to 68% at the moment. So right now it should want to run. So in the Trollmaster app, I've got my new device there, which is here, And I've got it set up to start at 10 AM, run for 35 seconds, which is just long enough for the misting pump for the mist controller, the INKbird mist controller, to turn on. It's then going to wait for 10 minutes before it runs again, and it's going to do a maximum of 37 cycles like that, which would finish at about 4 PM, which is about an hour and a half, 2 hours before sunset, enough time for the plants to dry off before night. So the next cycle is going to be at 2:49, which is just almost in a minute, for 35 seconds, if the humidity is still in the range we have it set to come on. It's 2:49 and the device has come on. INKbird controller's turned on, and now the misting's kicking off. Pressure has come down a little bit more now that we've added more nozzles. And it's turned off. This is a 24-hour snapshot from my Trollmaster HydroX, which is the climate controller, and it logs temperature and humidity. And in this circled section in the blue line, you can see the humidity, which is quite stable throughout the day, and you can see it go up and down as the misting turns on and off. And actually, as the day got warmer outside, the greenhouse temperature on the red line actually cooled down the more misting that was done due to the evaporative cooling effect. With the humidity sensor, you want to make sure that wherever you place it, you have it at the height of the head, because we're more concerned about the temperature and the humidity of the head, where is the growing point of the plant. You don't want to be measuring the humidity up the top here where the plant isn't growing, because that doesn't matter. We care about the climate that is around the plant. So you want to position the sensor at head height, and ideally in the middle of your greenhouse. You don't want to have it against the wall, in the corner, where you might have a microclimate. You want to have it that's the best average representation of the whole greenhouse. Another change that I also did was, it's been a couple weeks now, is I position the misting nozzles up. As you can see, they point up in each direction. That way the mist comes up and then falls down, so it gives it a little bit more time to change state before it reaches the plants. And the one at the end here, what I ended up doing was I pointed it forward towards the fan, because this one wasn't getting any air mixing being behind the fan, so that also solved that issue. And now the plants aren't wet anymore now come the afternoon. So overall, I'm really happy with the misting system. It's been a few weeks now and I've noticed a huge difference in the crop. Like when I first got the plants in there, they were quite generative and the heads were about to disappear. And now over the last 2 weeks of misting, I just see the vegetative growth come back in the head. There's more buds, the laterals come back. It looks amazing. I almost feel like here in Victoria or Australia, you can't really grow a great capsicum crop unless you have the humidity. So if you're in Asia and you have, RH of 60 or above outside, you probably don't need misting. But here where, it's getting down to 20 RH outside, or even 35 in the middle of winter now, you definitely need misting. It's a must go. It's a great tool even just to steer the plant as well. You don't necessarily just install it just for temperature, like the humidity tool of steering a plant, vegetative or generative, it's a great tool for that. So overall, I would definitely recommend this for anyone who has a greenhouse and is growing, eggplant or capsicum or tomatoes, if you're trying to steer your plants, or even, lettuce, because they get calcium tip burn, which is from a lack of calcium, and usually that happens in summer when you have just too much transpiration compared to the rate of uptake from the roots, and the tips go burnt. So it's a great tool for everyone in all sorts of situations. So if this video was helpful for you, please give it a thumbs up. Any questions, please put them down below. If you want to see more videos like this and keep watching the capsicum plants that I'm growing at the moment, hit that subscribe button and I'll see you in the next video. Cheers.